So today we are moving on. We're going to be talking about weighted averages. Weighted averages. So a weighted average, we use the symbol X bar like for average, but then it has a little W in the corner, so we know it's a weighted average. And this is when some data values have more importance or more of an impact on the average than others. Okay, so your grade is an example of a weighted average. Like we have our summative category is worth more towards your grade than the formative category, because the summative stuff is more important than the formative stuff. So to calculate the weighted average, we're going to have a fraction. You're going to take in the numerator each of your weights times that value that goes with the weight. Then you add them together, so weight times value plus weight times value, etc., however many weights you have. Then you'll divide by the sum of all your weights. Okay, so an example, your final semester grade in this class is, again, an example of a weighted average. So your midterm exam grade is worth 20% of your final grade, and then your term grade, so the summative, formative stuff, is worth 80% of your term grade. These are the weights. Whatever is the same for everybody is the weights. Okay, so for everyone, midterm is 20%, term grade is 80%. Then the values will just be like your individual grades that you get. So letter A here, if someone had an 88% for their term grade and a 75% on their midterm, what would their final semester grade be as a percent? So these specific values to a person, these are the values that we're going to use. So to calculate the weighted average, we'll take the weight for the midterm exam, which is 20%, and we'll multiply it by the value or the grade that the student has for their term, which is, or for the midterm exam, which is 75%. So the midterm exam and the grade on the midterm are paired up. Then we add it to the weight for the term grade, which is 80%, times the percent that person has for the term, which is 88%. And then we divide by the sum of the weights. So in this case, 80 or 20% plus 80%. If we're dealing with grades, the weights should always add up to 100. Okay, so when you evaluate this, you need to be careful. Either do each of like these multiplications here separately, then add, and then divide, or just be very careful with parentheses. You'd have to have a parenthesis around the entire numerator, then a parenthesis around the entire denominator. So I know you guys all have your own ways you like to plug it into the calculator, but just be careful that you're not trying to do too much and missing parentheses. So when you do this calculation here, you should end up with 85.4%. So if you plugged it in and you didn't get that, then Just gotta be careful with parentheses, most likely. What? Okay, so this was pretty straightforward. I gave you the weights, I gave you the values, the grades. You just had to plug it in, calculate the weighted average. Sometimes, and I'm sure this question will come up as we get towards the end of the semester, what grade do I have to get on the midterm in order to pass? You'll be able to figure that out. So letter B, if someone has a 92% for their term grade, what's the lowest grade they could get on their midterm exam to have an 85% for their final semester grade? So we want our final grade to be 85%. This is our final grade, which means this is the weighted average. So when we set up our equation, we will have 85% equals, and then the midterm exam, again, the weight is 20%, so we'll have our 20, times X, times A grade on the midterm. We don't know what it is. That's what we're trying to figure out. And then we will add it to the weight for the term grade, which is 80%, times the grade they have for the term, which is a 92%, divided by the sum of the weights, which again, 80 plus 20 is 100. Okay, so now it's a solve for X problem. So what do I do first if I want to solve for X? Yes, multiply by 100 on both sides. So we'll have 8,500 equals 20x plus, can someone tell me what 80 times 92 is?
7,360.
Thank you. Okay, then to solve for x, we can subtract the 7,360 from both sides. And we get and then finally divide by 20. You should get x equal a 57%. So good news for this kid, they could fail the midterm and still have a B.
Right now, that's what we're going to aim to do. We're going to get exactly a 57.
Exactly a 57. That's the lowest they could get and still end up with an 85% on their semester grade. If they got more than 57, they'd have a higher grade, which is cool. Okay, do you guys have any questions there? Okay, so this is when our weights are all dealing with percentages, so that's how we do stuff here at South Lyon East. But for classes, however, GPA is determined using GPA points. So GPA is another example of a weighted average. Because classes that are worth more credits have a larger impact. This is more, this comes more into play into college. College classes are worth different amounts of credits. Here, all your classes are worth half a credit per semester. So not too much variation in this case, but in college it comes more into play. And so here, the credits per class, that is the weight. Because everybody in that class will be worth 3 credits for math, 4 credits for science. That is the same for everybody. So the credits are the weights. Because again, they're the same for everyone. And then your grade, the grades that you as an individual have in the class, will be the values. However, we need to convert our letter grades into GPA points. So we have this conversion up here. So we just need to rewrite the letter grades that this student has in terms of GPA. So an A is a 4.0, B is a 3.0, and C is a 2.0. So these are your values, because they're specific to one person. Yeah. Question?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, so then when we do our weighted average, so we're going to take the credits each class is worth times the GPA points that student has in that class. So we'll take 3 credits for math times the 4.0 grade. plus, oh wait, I'll do it in red. I'll make it color-coded. Plus our 4 credits for science times a grade of 3.0 for their B. Plus 3 credits for English times their grade, which is a 3.0. Plus 2 credits for history times their grade, which is a C, so a 2.0. Okay, then we divide by the sum of the weights, not the sum of the grades. So it would be the sum of the credits. So 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2. That's a weird little bracket thing I tried to do there. These are, again, are the credits, not the grades. Okay, so then again, just be careful when you are plugging all of this in. You can do little bits and pieces at a time, or just be very careful with your parentheses. You should end up with 37 over 12, which would give you a 3.08 for a GPA. So if you didn't get 3.08, just double check how you plugged it into the calculator. Do you guys have any questions?